Well, the USDA held its annual Outlook Forum recently, and as you might expect, the prognosis wasn't nearly as positive compared to last year's forum. In this week's Bottom Line, Neil MELANCON brings us up to date on what was presented at the conference. And Neil, I understand there's a pretty bearish outlook for the grains.
Well, Mike, there's been two important news items this past week. The first is the rally in the stock markets, and the second is the USDA supply and demand report for March. First, let's take a look at those supply and demand numbers. Corn carryout for March was at 1.74 billion bushels, lower than the average trade estimate of 1.8 billion, about 40 million bushels lower than the February report. Soybeans were also bullish, about 15 million bushels lower than the average trade estimate, which was right at 200 million bushels this time around. Wheat, on the other hand, had some fairly strong bearish figures, with the trade estimate average at 659 million bushels and the USDA report pegging it at 712. As you can see, the upper end of the trade estimate was well below the USDA report for this month, and the markets responded appropriately. Now, all of these numbers are balanced out by the world carry-out numbers, which were much more bearish, especially for corn and wheat. Soybeans were a bit neutral in this report. Right now, the trade is looking at two things ahead: some final numbers for South America, as well as the planning intentions report, which comes out about a month from now. There are two more additional things that are going to take place in the meantime. One is that the markets are going to be looking at the outside markets, and two, the Dow. Right now, the Dow may be hitting a bottom, which would mean a turnaround in the economy about 6 months from now. And that would also help the markets get through some bearish numbers, especially for the South American harvest, the planning intentions report, as well as this overhanging carry-out, especially for wheat and corn. That's the bottom line this week. I'm Neil MELANCON. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Neil. And to stay up to date with farm prices and the latest agricultural news, you can listen to Neil's reports on the Louisiana Farm Bureau Radio Network. For a list of stations in your area, click on over to twilatv.org and we'll link you there.